Welcome back, everyone. This is not another podcast with myself, Sipho alongside Ndima, my co-host. And tonight we dive into the explosive testimony of Lieutenant General Ntlantla Mkhwanazi at the Madlanga Commission. But before we start off, man, how are you feeling today, dog?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. It's been a while. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we're not going to be too rusty, but I'm keen, man. I'm excited because this is massive, man. This is massive, and we're gonna cover quite a few things. But yeah, man, how are you doing?
I'm all right, man. Like you said, this is quite a big one that we're talking about tonight because of the nature of the issue at hand, but also the implications that it stands to it stands to have like on all of us because this affects the nation at large. So
Mm,
for those who missed it, this commission was set up in July this year by President Cyril Ramaphosa to investigate political interference, organized crime, and corruption inside our judicial system. And what General Mkhwanazi laid out over the past week could shake the very foundations of our democracy as South Africans. So here's what we know so far. So General Mkhwanazi accused former police minister, who is on special leave, Senzo Mkhulu, of orchestrating the weakening and eventual disbanding of the Political Killings Task Team, which is the PKTT, which was investigating over 100 cases of politically linked assassinations. He revealed that at least 121 crucial case dockets were quietly transferred out of KZN to Pretoria, where they sat untouched for months, effectively stalling prosecutions. He named several figures who, according to him, had access to sensitive police files or interfered in operations. Businessmen like Vusumuzi, Kat Matlala, political insiders like Brown Mokgotsi and Katiso Molife, and even members of parliament Diane Kohler Barnard and Fadil Adams. And he linked suspended senior police official Shadrach Sibia to questionable handling of these sensitive dockets. Still early right now, the commission is still in its early stages. General Mkhwanazi, as we've witnessed, has given his side, and those accused will have a chance to respond. So, next up, as we've seen from today, the National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemola, is expected to testify, which he has started. So, this could either reinforce Mkhwanazi's claims or completely undercut them. But here's the bigger picture. If what Mkhwanazi is saying is true, this isn't just corruption. This is about whether our law enforcement agencies can be trusted at all, whether political elites can bury cases of assassination and violence to protect their own. It's about the public's faith in justice and whether anyone in this country is truly above the law. So tonight we're asking the hard question. Is the Madlanga Commission South Africa's chance at cleaning house, or just another commission that'll gather dust while the rot continues? So, what is the Madlanga Commission and why does it matter? So, this is a judicial inquiry, right? Chaired by the Constitutional Court Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga that was set up in July 2025 by President Cyril Ramaphosa. So its official mandate is to investigate corruption, political interference, and organized crime within South Africa's criminal justice system. That means the police, intelligence services, prosecutors, and even parts of the judiciary. So why it matters is simple. South Africa has for years suspected that political killings, corruption, and mafia style networks are eating away at the state from inside. Unlike other commissions, this one isn't just about financial corruption, it's about whether our law enforcement itself has been captured and compromised. And if General Mkhwanazi's claims hold water, we're not just talking about shady deals. We're talking about murder cases being buried, political assassinations being ignored, and high level officials protecting criminals instead of citizens. So the Madlanga Commission matters because It goes to the heart of whether South Africa can trust its own justice system. And if this inquiry delivers, it could be a turning point. And if it fails, it could deepen the sense that accountability in this country is a myth, which is something that we all hope it doesn't go to. So, Ndima, my question to you is, what has stood out to you so far with as you've gathered your research about this commission?
Mm. So this is just all around explosive. I think we can all agree about that. But just to before I answer your question, I think it's important for us to set the tone with a quote from this very commission. And it's a healthy justice system is key to the rule of law and in turn to a functioning constitutional democracy. With a criminal
Mm,
justice system that is populated by malleable and corrupt functionaries, many criminals, especially those holding positions of influence, will rarely, if ever, answer for their criminal deeds. Now, this is from directly quoted from former Deputy Chief Justice Mbuyiseni Madlanga, and I think it very concisely wraps up what's at stake with this entire commission. Is that I think as South Africans, we're tired of knowing that there's this deep rot, this deep corruption happening in the country that affects every facet of our lives. And time again, we found that it never really leads to anywhere. It never really leads to convictions and people actually being held accountable. It's all usually swept under the rug. And so, what I found the most damning about all of this so far is just the audacity of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi's claims and his ability to actually bring receipts and bring some very incriminating information to the forefront of everything that's going on. And I think this is a this could easily be the most significant moment in our democratic history, considering the implications of the deep rot of corruption, the fact that there's this allegation or claims that we're essentially run by a mafia. We're essentially a mafia state. You know, there's actually a South African deep state, which is basically allegedly a set of or a criminal syndicate, which runs in many facets. It affects many aspects of our society. So, for me, what stood out on the surface for me is just how we're finally seeing someone bringing everything to the table and actually following through with a lot of very damning, very incriminating, well, a lot of very incriminating allegations against some very powerful people who are supposed to be in stations of service for the people, but instead they've used these stations to run some very dark, corrupt rackets, allegedly, when they're supposed to be using these facilities and resources and financial ability to serve the nation. So yeah, this is very, very, very interesting, just to say the least. I don't know how you feel so far.
hey, very interesting indeed, bro. I mean, what stood out to me as I was watching the commission earlier today was, everything that General Mkhwanazi had said and had addressed
Mm,
regarding what you call this, the press conference, the initial press conference that he had hosted to bring awareness to the nation about what's really going on
mm,
in our judicial system, and also, what do you call this? The judicial system and the South African police services, is that,
mm,
yeah, basically he's standing on business, bro. He came
mm,
there very well prepared, had a very calm demeanor, very self assured. His body language was very confident in what he had to say. And I like that the commission itself started with what the commission is and why we're here today. What are
mm,
the allegations that are being investigated? And also, what is the main function of the South African police services? So there was that introduction first, and then the General Mkhwanazi went on to introduce himself, tell us about his background, and his experience in the police force, how he came up and everything of that like. And then, like I said in the beginning, his self-assurance and very calm demeanor in presenting his evidence and stating his case tells you that he's been wanting to talk about this. He's been wanting to talk about this. He's been wanting to address these issues. And everything he had said in the press conference hasn't changed to what he has brought forward in this commission now that he is being scrutinized and examined by the commissioners. Yeah, he's brought receipts, he's standing on business, and the nature of these allegations, bro, are so serious. And the fact that he started with the refresher from the press conference and now he's getting into more detail about the nature of these allegations, it's something very, very scary and serious. And yeah, all I can say is, bro, Minister Senzo Mkhunu is cooked, bro. He's cooked, bro. Yo.
You say it's that bad. That
It's
so early
bad,
on,
bro,
it's that bad.
because like everything he has accused the Senzo Mkhunu on, right? He has now gone on to detail as to how Mr. Senzo Mkhunu is involved in disbanding the political killings task team, like how this thing started, right? How the political killings task team started, why it was disbanded, how it was disbanded, and who was involved in that disbanding. Because from what I gathered, I'm not too sure if the president initially knew about this disbanding, right? But there's a lot of loopholes and protocols that Senzo Mkhunu jumped in making this decision because not even the national commissioner himself, Ufani Masemola, was informed about this disbanding, you know? It was something that was done in secret, and the composition of the letter, which stated the disbanding, which instructed the disbanding of the political killings task team, was done in secret, and it was only a few people were involved, and the few people involved were the minister, his chief of staff, and some characters in the shadows who might be influencing politicians in 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 parliament, and also the fact that these people are the very people themselves who are accused by General Mkhwanazi in terms of interfering politically and also being implicated in these political killings and assassinations. So General Mkhwanazi confirmed all of that today, and the National Commissioner Ufani Masemola had started testifying today, and from what I've gathered, I haven't watched today's episode, if I could put it that way, but it seems like Ufani Masemola is confirming everything that Jerome Kwanazi has had. So I don't see how Senzo Mkhunu is getting away with this, bro, because now he's cooked, bro. He's cooked.
But I wasn't regarding you mentioned something about how it seems like Mkhwanazi kind of brought this out in secret and didn't really follow the due process. Wasn't there some kind of speculation that Mkhwanazi, that he first brought it to the president, and then when he realized that he wasn't really getting anywhere with this, then he decided to make it public knowledge. I don't know if that's been proven or not, but
No. So what I said is that the disbanding itself, right? The announcement of the disbanding and the composition of that letter was done in secret, right? By Senzo Mkhunu and his associates,
yes.
right? And with what you're bringing up with General Mkhwanazi reaching out to the various channels in trying to get the message across, getting the message across as to the consequences that disbanding the political killings task team has, the severe consequences it has in stalling prosecutions and everything else is that he confirmed it. He had gone to the president. He had gone to. I'm not too sure
Mm.
who else he went to, but everything, but all the people that he had gone to trying to address this thing, he confirms that he actually did go and he did go to these people and there was no response, right? Which is
Very
what led
interesting.
him to ultimately bring it forward to the public. So yeah, dog,
So
it's.
so our president
Mhm.
is seemingly implicit in some way because
Yeah.
an issue of this magnitude, brought to the president, and it's the president didn't seem to see the urgency in it. In order for Mkhwanazi to now bring this to light in the way that he did, it makes Cyril look very, very bad, or at least it makes him look very
It
suspicious,
does. It
very, very
does.
suspicious.
It does. There's it does make him look suspicious because how are you? Because this is something someone had said when this whole press conference emerged is that how are you as the president, citizen number one in this country, right?
Mm,
Not aware of the disbanding of the PKTT, right? When
mm,
every morning supposedly you are briefed as to what the hell is going on in the country. How come this very serious issue just slipped through the cracks without your knowledge? It doesn't make sense. Like it's an eyebrow raiser.
like massive eyebrow raiser. It's either the usual incompetence, or obviously it's deliberate. It's one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
There's no middle ground here. So, but I this makes things even more interesting because now I genuinely can't wait to see what is going to come to light when the president himself takes the stand at some point. Especially when you say that it seems like this is actually a serious thing where Mkhwanazi is bringing some very solid evidence to sort of back up his claims. What's going to come
Mm-hmm.
to light when the president eventually, is brought in? What are we going to? What's going to be revealed through all of this?
I think when the president comes in, bro, because when the president comes in, I don't think it's going to be as explosive as we anticipated to be, right? Just
Mm.
knowing how our president is like and how he is a master
Oh,
of saying of finessing. Like he's one of the finesse
tiptoes
gods, bro.
around the topic.
Yeah. I think there is an int because our president, like he's in New York right now, right? But I think what I heard, I think today, I'm not too sure where I heard this from, but apparently he's going to have an interview where
Mm,
he addresses, I think, some of the allegations, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, if he, yeah, addresses some of the allegations before he takes his stand. But to me, bro, I want to hear what Ufani Masimola has to say. I'm going to
mm,
follow up on that probably tomorrow, definitely after this episode. But hey, me, I want to hear what Kat Matala has to say. That's the one person
mm.
I'm looking forward to. Like, what do you know? Because there's
Yeah.
a lot. Like, he's like, if not the main character, one of the main characters, right, in this entire
Mm,
operation, and he's been wanting to sing, bro. Ever since he
mm,
got arrested and everything. He's got a lot to say. He's got a lot of files on everyone. I mean, even his own phone was confiscated during the investigation,
mm,
which had damning evidence evidence of conversations between himself and everyone involved in this, right?
mm,
So, and the fact that he was in charge of organizing some of these hits and assassinations. Like, yeah,
mm.
it's dark, bro. Like, there's a lot that he needs to account to. There's a lot he wants
Yeah.
to say from what I hear, and yeah, that's gonna be explosive, like bombastic blockbuster,
Mm.
bro. Like,
And this
but
and this is
like
massive,
just
man.
just before, sorry, dog,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I pass it over to you, bro. Like I said earlier, dude, like the one person who's going to take the fall in this, bro, is Senzo Mkhunu. Yeah, like he is so cooked, bro.
Mm. He's so cooked.
Yep.
He's definitely gearing up to be the fall guy because we know
Mm-hmm.
that this runs deeper, far deeper than
Mm-hmm.
him. And so I think we can assume or presume that these people are powerful enough to hide behind the shadows and shuffle away while Nkunu takes all the heat. Nkunu and whatever
Mm-hmm.
other people can be implicated along with him who are accessible. But
Mm-hmm.
I need to know who are these people? Who are these criminal syndicates? Like where do these people come from? Are they in politics? Are they in business or both? Who are these people? Like we need
Yeah, we
to
need to
these are the
know.
things we need to get to, you know. And I think
Yeah.
when it comes to the political killings task team being disbanded, it's I think people need to understand how much of a fundamental problem that is because we have a
Mm-hmm.
culture in this country of political killings where whistleblowers who threaten to underturn some serious corruption, they get snuffed out, you know. There's been
Yeah.
so many different examples of this. There's been most recently there was Babita Diokran. She
Mm-hmm.
was the senior finance official in Gauteng in the Department of Health. They took her out. She was assassinated
Yeah.
because she uncovered certain things and she was about to unearth them. And then when that time came, they got her. They shot her 12 times and she never made it. You know, she died later on in the hospital. You know, and there's many other examples of this. But it's a
Yeah.
deep issue in this country where we need some kind of system, some kind of aggressive system that actually targets corruption and that protects people who know something that is some kind of issue that isn't that implies not implies but that implicates government and government
Mm-hmm.
corruption because we know that government corruption basically it's like this cancer that truly holds us back from developing in the most basic ways as a society because when you have the culture of corruption, it gets in the way of state services being delivered, very necessary state services. So, among other things.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we need to know who these people are because we need to get this issue at the root. You know, it's not enough for us to get the fall guys like Omkunu and the guys that are on the surface. Who
Yeah,
is
yeah.
this deep state? You know, who are these people?
And this is something I had asked on, I think, episode 7 when we first brought this whole commission thing up and
Mm,
the press conference got Mkhwanazi about ngobani abantu? Like, who are these drug dealers, bro? Like, who
mm,
are these guys who have so much power and are working in the shadows, influencing our politicians, bro? Because
mm,
if, like, how crazy is this, bro? You are the minister of police, right?
mm-hmm,
You're the minister of police and you're protecting criminals, bro. In
mm,
this, you're protecting criminals in the syndicate, right? These criminals are pushing drugs, they're killing people,
mm-hmm,
they're pushing drugs, they're killing people, they are making money from unscrupulous methods from receiving
mm,
tenders, and they're receiving tenders in very underhanded manners, and
mm-hmm,
you are facilitating all of this as the minister, right? But you're the minister
mm,
of police, the guy we're supposed to look up to in terms of crime prevention and everything. You are just as dirty as these guys, and you are about to be implicated, right? You're about to be called into question for all of this, and it's just the irony, man. It's like
deep
finding
irony.
it's like finding a priest, bro, like stealing money from the church type thing, you know?
Mm,
Or a priest
mm-hmm.
running a drug operation at a church. It's like, dude, what the fuck?
That
What are you, you know? So with that being said, right, it's like the seriousness of these allegations, right, really lies in the missing dockets. Not necessarily missing, but the dockets went that were transferred from one place to another and were untouched,
mm,
you know. And this is the result of the disbanding of the political killings task team, which was making a number of arrests, which was making a lot of progress in unearthing a lot of a lot of things that were happening, and now things have stalled ever since this disbanding was implemented, and these case dockets are just sitting there idly while people are running rampant, breaking the law in this country. So
mm.
I think my other question to you would be what? Oh yeah, because you also mentioned the whistleblower, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
set this off for me, from what I understand, was the killing of, I think, Armand Swat. I hope I get his
Mm-hmm.
name wrong. So this was the whistleblower, and this was not even the right guy who they killed, mind you, right? But the guy who they were supposed to take out was a whistleblower who flagged corruption in in a Transnet tender, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I think parts were being sold for ridiculous prices, were being marked up at ridiculous rates, so that these
Yes.
guys could make a fat amount of profit. So Armand Swart gets killed, right? And that gets investigated. They discover the gun, only to find that the same gun that was used to kill him is linked to other high-profile murders involving linked to these political killings. So that is the main case for me, which blew this whole thing out of the water, which has what had
Mm-hmm.
compelled Lieutenant Mkhwanazi to to just spill the beans, essentially, as to this is what is
Yeah.
going on, and this is why I am saying this, because I've tried every avenue to bring this up, and I was ignored. So this is this is my last resort, essentially. I'm bringing this out to the public, and this is what's going on, and this is why we have this commission now. So, where do you think where do you see this commission going forward, bro? Like, as much as we mentioned everyone who is implicated, where do you think this is going forward? Because already there's some explosive allegations that are being confirmed, right, and being verified.
Mm-hmm.
And what next do you foresee happening? What do you think? What are you looking forward to?
Oof. What am I expecting? What am I looking forward to? I just want all of it. Every bit of information that we can get, every, I'm not even kidding. Every single individual who's implicated in
Bro,
this, we need to do the deep dive, the deep digging.
bro.
I don't expect us to get everyone because
Mm-hmm.
the way these things tend to work out is that the guys at the very center tend to get away, which is
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily that bad of a thing because we can always get them down the line. But the point is, I want us to get as many of these people as possible, and I'm
Yeah.
talking politicians, I'm talking businessmen, I'm talking influencers, because we know even these celebrities are somehow implicit in
Yeah.
this because the
Yeah.
entertainment industry is also tied to this somehow, but
Yeah.
and you touched on the aspect of criminal activity. There's also the angle of human trafficking,
Mm.
drugs. I don't know if you heard about the recent 7 Chinese nationals who were accused of human trafficking. They were trafficking Malawans in the country for their sweatshops, and
Oh
what
my
they were all
God.
sent. Dude, they were all sentenced, né? But one of them, one of these Chinese nationals, she went
Oh
on
yeah, yeah,
saying, "No,
yeah.
yeah, our boss is in this country. He's this is a very powerful person in South Africa." And they were asking her,
Mm.
grilling her like, "Who? Name this person. Who is this person?" And she wouldn't name this guy, this person, this woman, whoever it is. But we know that the rot runs so deep that there are even international agents in this country who are running criminal syndicates from inside the borders of our country. And we can't have that happening, with impunity. It's like where's our criminal justice system? Where's our police?
Mm.
Where are the teeth in our judicial system, in our police force? And this is where I circle around to why, and I'm not going to say why Mkhwanazi in particular is important, but why leaders like him are important is because
Yeah.
we we're in desperate need of a culture of accountability in this country, man. Like
Mm.
like
Be-
corruption has been
mm-hmm.
allowed to run rampant for so long. Mkhwanazi is a breath of fresh air in so many aspects. Not only is he bringing claims, he seems to be bringing hard evidence, and the more time goes by, the more I just want to see all of them. Sibanike bonke. We need this as a
Yeah.
country.
You know what? At this point, bro, I don't even think they're claims, bro, because claims or allegations, bro. This guy is bringing facts. Like,
Mm,
honestly, dude, why else would you organize a press conference making
Mm,
such serious claims,
mm,
right? Allegations, and
mm.
there's no truth behind this. We find out like that there's absolutely no truth behind this. This guy is talking out of his ass, and yeah, none of this shit is true. Like, why would you go to such lengths, bro? Only for
Yeah,
this to be not true? I don't think so, dog. I
yeah,
think
because
this
you
man.
can't you
Mm,
can't trust a corrupt system to do its own investigating of itself. That's why
mm-hmm,
Mkhwanazi is doing what he's doing, is because he clearly went through the right avenues. Because of course
mm-hmm,
he seems to be a man who wants to go by due process before he does anything
mm-hmm,
else. And clearly the due process didn't work out for him. You know, people kept it
mm-hmm,
hush hush and they pretended as if it wasn't a big deal. And it tells you everything. You can't trust a corrupt system to deal with itself. You know, there have to be
bro.
somewhat free agents like Mkhwanazi who are gonna go into the sidelines a little bit, but still wanting to address the issues and the deep-rooted corruption through the judicial system itself. Because at the end of the day, this is what has to work. The judicial system
Mm-hmm,
has to do its job. You know, just because it's corrupt doesn't mean we have to now just give up on it and say, oh well, you know, let's
yeah,
he's still going at it by the books, which is exactly what we need. Because at the end of the
yeah,
day, we want law and order. We don't want lawlessness. We want the legal system to prove itself to us as average South Africans who pay taxes,
mm-hmm,
whose taxes were being used by these criminal syndicates and these
bro.
criminally affiliated politicians and business people and entertainers. Like, we want them. Sibafuna bonke. This is
Yeah,
essentially like South Africa's Epstein files in a sense. I don't know if you're getting that
yeah,
vibe,
definitely,
but that's what it feels like to
definitely,
me.
bro. That is what it feel. It feels like. Can I tell you, bro? It feels like this is our Epstein files moment,
Mm.
but the vibe I'm getting, bro, is OJ Simpson versus the state vibes, bro. That's how serious this shit is looking. Like,
It's
yeah,
worse than OJ. It's far worse
it's
because
worse than
this is like,
OJ, right?
yeah, it implicates
This is
an
what I'm
entire
saying.
system. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it's worse than OJ. Like, granted, I'm just saying the seriousness, like the tone and the mood in the commission, like when you're in that room and you're watching what's being said, just the mood, I won't even call it somber, bro. It's fucking serious. Like, this is a high profile criminal case. Do you remember how the mood was when Oscar Pistorius was in court?
Mm, really?
Imagine that times 10, bro. This is how this feels like. Like, because, dude, while I was watching it, all I could say to myself is, yo, you're like, yanyi, wap. Yo, you're like, Siakib. That's all I could think of. Like, yo, nah, this thing is dead serious, bro. Like, you would swear, like, Oaks have committed treason, you know?
They have, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. It feels like a treason trial, bro. So
Yeah.
that's the mood I get from watching this. And I would urge, even if you're not into politics, if you just want drama, just find time to watch one of the days where either General Mkhwanazi is speaking, is testifying, or Fani Masimola. Because,
Mm,
yeah, bro, this is a watershed moment in our country. And it's looking to be a very historical moment, right? That we're going to look back on, which will
mm,
define not only where we go as a country, but ultimately this defines President Ramaphosa's legacy as our
mhm.
president. You know,
Yeah.
this
This,
this
this,
really.
yeah, man.
Mhm,
Yeah, I was just gonna say this. If this goes how we needed to the letter, this
mhm.
could be the defining moment for this country for years to come.
For
It's such a
years, bro.
massive opportunity to uproot so much of the corruption that has been holding us back as a country. I
Mhm,
think, and you mentioned this earlier about how people should check it out even if they're not into politics. This concerns all of us. You know, this isn't a niche
bro.
thing. This is the implications involved in this involve every living South African, you know, and even for the future.
Mhm,
Because if we can use this, or if this can be used by the judicial system as the moment, as a snowball moment for us to truly go after corruption and not just talk about going after it like we did in the Zondo
Mm-hmm.
Commission, where people just sat around talking and we waited several months and nothing was done. There was no real outcome. This has to have teeth. This has to be the moment where we say as South Africans that our judicial system has teeth, and we intend to come for every bit of corruption that we can in this country, especially when you consider how deep the implications are. This involves parliament. This involves certain businessmen. This involves entertainment. How
Mm-hmm.
do all of these sectors interlink with criminal activity? Like, where is the center here? Where is this all sprawling from?
Bro, bro, there are so many questions, and you ask a very critical question, which I do believe we will find out as this commission develops
Mm,
and wanes. So, closing the book on the Madlanga Commission, let's now turn to the global stage where we recently saw Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Narendra Modi, and even Kim Jong un meeting in a rare show of unity. So, what would we say is the core motive? To push BRICS as a counterweight to Western power. And for South Africa, this is both an opportunity and a risk. And our seat at the table gives us influence, but also ties us to a shifting world order that could reshape global politics and economics. So we saw this it transpired sometime last week, and all these big powers came to meet, and China its par- it displayed a massive military
mm,
parade, where they exhibited their might first and foremost, but also the advancements they've made in technology and advancing their weaponry, when it comes to warfare.
mm,
So, with this meeting that has happened, right, we had talked about it like briefly when we were talking, coming up with some topics. What has what has stood out to you? Like, what's been your impression about this, and what do you think this stands to mean on a global scale?
mm. So I just have questions about all of this. In terms of what
Talk
I've
to
been
me.
observing, I have so many questions that I don't even know if anyone has any real answers to, but some of
Mm-hmm.
them are questions that you can come to the conclusion of yourself, as the average person. But what's happening? What are we witnessing? Are we witnessing a shift in global power dynamics? Are we seeing
Mm-hmm.
the slow death of the Western chokehold on global
Mm-hmm.
dynamics? Are we seeing a rising Eastern tiger in the form of Russia, China, India? And if that is what's happening, where does that put us? Where do we fit in this entire scenario? What does the future hold? What are the intentions, more importantly, of BRICS, in the world stage? And when I ask the question of where do we fit in this, it's the question of what do we bring to the BRICS table? Because
Mm.
um, we seem to be, if you compare the BRICS powers being Russia, or rather, let me say the most notable powers being Russia, China, India, and then there's us. We seem to
Don't
be,
forget Brazil.
and Brazil, of course, yes. We
Mm-hmm.
seem to be economically the little brother.
Yeah,
And in my opinion, that puts us in a very dangerous position because the little brother can be manipulated and undermined and used if the little brother doesn't have any
a
traction,
backbone. Yeah,
if it doesn't have a backbone, and if it doesn't have any actual economic and geopolitical standing, which we
leverage. Yeah.
exactly we lack that in spades as a country. That's why I'm asking the question of, sure, BRICS is a very interesting, and it's a very good initiative for the global south in terms of helping to bolster and really fast track economic development, and ties between different nations in the global south. But the question still remains, where do we fit? What do we bring to the table? Can we afford to walk away whenever we feel like we are being roped into some kind of decision in BRICS that we don't align with or that we disagree with? Do we have the leverage to say no and to walk away? And that it goes back to the question of how neglecting the development of a country like ours can come to bite us in the ass in the future, because the world
Mhm.
continues to grow, the world continues to advance. Geopolitical alliances are formed, and while that's happening, Tina Siseli, we're just, letting things happen to us. We're letting ourselves blow in the wind. So I'm looking at this from like a very pragmatic and realistic perspective of like, sure, you can look at this and say this is great. We're seeing a shift away from Western monopoly, but then what is that going to look like? Who benefits? Who loses? I can't help but wonder. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of valid points. So just to start off, from what I understand with this, what you call this, with this meeting, is that this meeting, I think it was always bound to happen,
Mm,
but the implementation of the tariffs, right, imposed by Donald Trump and his administration really accelerated the urgency and the need for the BRICS bloc to really band together and have this kind of meeting, especially especially the big the big players, and
mm,
Russia, China and Russia, because they are the most affected, right?
mm,
China, Russia, India, along with South Africa, are one of the biggest trading partners of the United States. And the fact that you have India, who who are hit with 50% tariff
yeah,
rates, that drove them away from the United States as uh, a global partner, because yeah, India is one of, I mean, prior to, like, leading up to this meeting, India was one of the United States' strongest and closest allies and trading
mm,
partners in the global economy. But now that you had imposed these tariffs, mind you, the relations between India and China on a
mm,
diplomatic political level were already strained, right?
exactly.
There was already conflict between Washington and New Delhi, right? And now you have this situation where now you have these tariffs being imposed, which drove Modi and his administration more to the BRICS side to strengthen their ties with Russia, China, South Africa,
Mm,
and Brazil. So you have that factor, right? But also, like I had said, this meeting was always bound to happen, right? Because you've always had this East versus West trade war, which had been going on way before Trump, during Obama's time as well. It was always this trade war between the US and China. But Trump's administration just made things worse. This is way before the tariffs,
mm,
right? Because Trump's America First policy and his America First stance had rubbed some powers the wrong way, right? Because you found that Trump's bullying style and strong demands in terms of the conditions of his partnership with these countries were much more favorable to the US other than the other nations. So this is what really drove Russia and China to band together, but particularly Russia, because Russia had been sanctioned, right? We all know Russia has been sanctioned by the rest of the West because of its involvement in the Ukraine war. And the fact that now Russia has been sanctioned, they can't really trade with other European countries. It drove
mm,
them to partner with China because, as much as they've been sanctioned by the rest of the West, you need to understand that Russia is one of the biggest producers and suppliers of oil in the world.
mm,
And the fact that now they can't sell their oil to other countries pushed them to China because China needs oil, right? China is the biggest manufacturing the biggest manufacturing plant, for lack of a better word, in the world, and they need oil. And the fact that Russia was still trading with China amongst these sanctions and other Arab countries is shows that Russia can still thrive without Western support. It still has very strong allies, very strong friends in other parts of the globe where they don't really need the West. The sanctions haven't really had that much of an effect on Russia's economy. Russia's still exporting oil to China. Russia's still exporting, is still in talks with North Korea and the Arab states. So, and the fact that 1/5 of China's oil is oil that is supplied by Russia, which is oil that is not supposed to be bought because this is sanctioned oil. That just shows you that Russia's Russia stands to benefit a lot in this partnership because they are in a weakened state, but they still have friends who are willing to do business and support them in their endeavors. Because you also find a situation where North Korea has also sent troops to support Russia in the Ukraine war. So Russia, in my opinion, is the biggest benefactor because of the reasons I had stated. Putin is still showing that he is very powerful with or without the US and the EU. And then China, the big player, the big organizer into all of this, their motivation is to show that they are now the leaders of the globe. They are the ones setting precedents into where the world is going forward because they're the ones who essentially organize this meeting. They are the ones who they are the ones who organize this meeting. They are in competition with the US in terms of their economies, right? But also the fact that China has China is setting itself to be the global leader in politics, right? It's yeah, it's positioning itself as a global leader in politics because of these tariffs, and also because the fact that they want they want to they want to be the big player. So you are finding a situation where now the convention of these big players is putting China in a bigger position where they are now eclipsing the United States as the main leader, and you are finding that Western influence on the rest of the world is declining as a result. Because another fact that you must understand from an economic standpoint is that China currently owns more US Treasury bonds, right, than the United States Central Bank. And what that essentially means is China, the Chinese economy has more dollars, right? Has more of the US currency in its reserves than the US actually does have of its own money, right? So you're producing dollars, but I have a lot more dollars than you do in my reserves, And do you see what I'm getting at?
Oh my God.
You see what I'm getting at. So China has that. it's a heavy one.
Yeah, keep going.
So China has that, and they they stand to overtake the US as the world's biggest economy in less than a decade, right? Due to their advancements, which will essentially see the US losing its stronghold on the rest of the world entirely. So this is the motive for China, right? They are essentially wanting to kick the United States to the curb and take over the reins. And what makes this so what's accelerating this reality is the fact that Trump, and this is how South Africa plays into this, right? So Trump has decided not to attend the upcoming G20, right? That is being hosted in South Africa. And he has instead delegated his vice president, J.D. Vance, to attend. So what this means is that Trump is absent in a very important convention pertaining to the
Mm,
global economy, and Xi Jinping will be there. So you do the math. Who will now be taking charge, you know, in these conversations, taking the lead, taking the initiative in driving these conversations and pushing their agenda forward, right? While Trump is not there. So China is essentially filling in the vacuum in the United States' absence, which is something that will accelerate China's influence on the rest of the world much quicker than we thought. And the rest of the West, the Western region, is threatened by this. You saw Trump's reaction to the meeting. He responded very quickly, saying things like, "Oh, I guess we lost India to China, to deepest, darkest China." So he's
mm,
threatened by all of this. And South Africa hosting the G20, right? We don't have much of a say in terms of where we stand because we're already affiliated by BRICS, right? And
mm,
I think another thing that puts South Africa in a very, I won't say precarious position, right? In a position where they can't really choose whose side they're on is the fact that South Africa's justice system opened a criminal case against Israel, who is a very strong partner of the
mm,
US, right? Regarding their crimes on humanity in terms of the war that they've inflicted in Gaza and Palestine. So
mm,
by default, we're on the BRICS side, which is the safe side to be in right now because of the trajectory where BRICS is going. And if if one day, right, we see maybe a common currency amongst the BRIC nations, which is not necessarily backed by the US dollar, which might be backed by oil or gold. That is
mm,
a currency that will inevitably be stronger than the dollar, and you'll see everything now being shifted in terms of like global pricing and everything. The standard will be probably this BRICS currency instead of the US dollar, which will flip
mm,
everything around because now the power is with BRICS and no longer with the United States, which is what I think is putting a lot of fear into the United States and the rest of the West, if I'm making sense.
mm. Oh, yeah, there's a lot to this, but like one thing that I seem that I'm observing about um the US the US's actions, and particularly Trump's actions with the tariffs, is that
Mm-hmm.
it seems like, and I don't know how they didn't foresee this happening, but it seems like the tariffs are essentially turning the United States' enemies into allies, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that obviously works against the US. And so, for example, you see how the tariffs have seemingly pushed India closer into the arms of China, which,
Mm-hmm.
if you know anything about the relationship between China and India, is that they it's a complicated one, but they do have some conflict. There's the northern border disputes that have been happening between India and China, where China was overstepping, and so they were trying to encroach over Indian territory. But it's not to say that they've been these mortal enemies, but the actions of the United States are pushing their enemies closer together, and I don't understand what their angle was with this. Was Trump trying to, with this aggressive approach, was he trying to sort of
Mm-hmm.
overcorrect the ineptitudes of the Biden administration before him? What was the angle here? What is he
Yes.
trying to do? Because it's clearly working against them now. Because when you mentioned about manufacturing, the U.S. needs China way more than China needs the U.S.
The
in
US,
terms of
yes.
manufacturing. Because the U.S. made that fatal mistake of outsourcing their manufacturing in the 1980s, and so, or
Mm.
maybe you could even theorize that that's exactly what Silicon Valley wanted, because what else can you replace people with, if you no longer have an entire manufacturing wing? in the shores of the US. Then that's where you introduce AI and automation, and suddenly you have Silicon Valley and big data like expanding even further and having an entire chokehold on that industry. So
Okay.
the world stage is being set clearly for something. We don't know what as yet, but clearly China is not here to play anymore, you know. But you did raise
Yeah.
a very interesting point about BRICS potentially in the future introducing a new currency to rival or even to upend the dollar dominance, you know. What form will that take? How what would that look like, you know? All the important questions of who benefits from all this, you know. But it's a very, very interesting time seeing this happen in real time, because China, the union of China and Russia in particular, has posed a real opposing threat to the status quo that has been Western dominance for so long. And it's even taking form of the fact that the US is even isolating itself through tariffs by turning even certain European nations against them. You know, there's even certain European countries that no longer stand with them as much as they used to because of the pressures that the tariffs are introducing. So I don't get it. I don't get why Trump is thinks this aggressive approach is going to work in favor of US interests. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But clearly the East isn't here to play anymore. It's going to be a very interesting time going forward.
What a time to be alive, bro. I just
Truly.
want to address just a few points that you've made there. So the first one is where you talk about Trump possibly trying to rectify some of Biden's policies that he enacted
Mm,
as president. That's one way to look at it, right? Because that is one part of the motivation. Trump absolutely abhors some of the policies that were enacted
mm,
the by his predecessor's administration during his time as president, and he wants to undo some of those. Also, another factor is what I had stated earlier, that the US feels that it had been taken advantage of, you know, in these trade deals and these partnerships as a result
mm,
of Biden's administration. So he's trying to redress that. But his America First approach also plays into this because of he's trying to keep manufacturing, right, and the production chain, if I can put it like that, in US shores, right? So I know that
mm,
you talked about Silicon Valley wanting to accelerate automation in terms of artificial intelligence and everything like that. So the reason companies like Apple, Nike, and the like uh, prefer to have their operations, their manufacturing operations outside of the US shores is because of a concept called comparative advantage. So what that means is that it's an economic concept where if it's cheaper to make
mm,
products in in China, for example, right, than it is to make products in your home country, then it's best to rather move your operations to China, where your production costs are significantly lower than than what it would it would cost to create an iPhone in the US, right? It's a lot cheaper
mm,
to make an iPhone in China than it is in the US. So you're saving a lot of money, you're cutting a lot of costs, and that essentially drives profit, right? So that's the main factor. But now Trump is introducing these tariffs because uh, with the production of these goods elsewhere, when that money is being transferred back into the US, you're not getting all of it, right? There's some
mm,
that stays in in the operating country where you're doing your business. So the motive of these tariffs is to offset that loss you make from the money that gets transferred back to the US, right? So he's trying to offset that, but also he's trying to keep manufacturing and manufacturing jobs in the US. So he's also trying to encourage the same companies to bring their operations, their manufacturing operations in the US. Although this this will be more expensive, which is where the tariffs come into play, right? Because now, if you're imposing tariffs on goods that are being imported into the US, right? You're protecting US goods by keeping them competitive and driving the prices of foreign goods. You're driving them, you're driving them up to make them less competitive, right? So the foreign goods will be more expensive to buy in the US, and US products will be a lot cheaper, which will which what that essentially does is uh more US goods are being bought, which is good for the local economy, right? So there's a competition element that is being protected by Trump. And in the short term, these tariffs will make hundreds of billions of dollars for the US, right? But the implications, the long-term implications is the partnerships that you stand to lose, and
Yes.
the partnerships you stand to lose with your global trading partners. That's what we're seeing. That's essentially why we're seeing the situation where BRICS is now coming together and forming stronger ties with its partners to combat the US in this field, right? So this is why you're getting this situation, and I'm trying to explain it as best as I can, but this is why you have the situation in a nutshell.
Yeah, it seems very short-sighted on the US's part because I
Definitely.
understand when you make the point that um, it's supposed to generate a huge reserve of money for the US for the
Yes.
short term, but the cost or the trade-off, it's a massive trade-off, which is basically you're creating more enemies. You're playing this adversarial game unnecessarily and stacking your enemies up against you, and you by doing this you are isolating yourself to an extent, and you can't afford to do that because your quote unquote enemies, as they are perceived, being China, Russia, etc., these are all world powers that are really really rising to truly rival the US's monopoly. So it's like I don't understand Trump's need to want to try and create enemies. I get
Mm-hmm.
that he's trying to rectify the past, but at what cost? Is it really worth it at the cost of creating global enemies in an already volatile, geopolitical time?
Mm-hmm. It's an ego thing, bro. It's an ego
Mm,
thing because he wants, he's all about the MAGA movement to make America great again. And he is going at all lengths, right, to
mm,
make this happen. And with what you said of short-sightedness, he's blinded by his need for that idea to come to life, right? In
mm,
order to make this happen. But he doesn't he doesn't see what you call this. He doesn't see the long-term consequences of this because I think this is how Trump is, right? Like most of his decisions sometimes are haphazard, right? And
mm,
because he wants to exercise power more than anything. So I
mm,
don't think he really understood like how how deep his actions uh how deep his actions will affect his not only his economy but the shift in global powers for the long term, which is what we're starting to see. I mean, we don't know what essentially was being said in the convention with China, Russia, and India, but we know that this is only the
Mm,
start, and we know part of the reason this started is the fact that they are standing together to combat Western power and influence on their own affairs. So yeah, there's a lot. There's really a lot, and I hope that did answer your question. But like you said in the beginning, man, this leaves a lot more questions than answers and
mm,
conclusions, and one needs to do their own research to really understand what's going on and form their own opinion and come up with their own conclusions as to where things might possibly go. So
mm,
staying with America, right? And yeah, staying with America, but moving on to another topic, you know, we come back. So from shifting alliances abroad, right? We come back to a very shocking event that happened recently, which shocked the political world, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, right? So
mm,
Charlie Kirk was a conservative activist and co-founder of Turning Point USA and was fatally shot on the 10th of September 2025 while speaking at Utah Valley University as part of his American Comeback Tour. So the gunshot, as you know, came from a distance roughly from a building roughly 160 to 200 meters away using a bolt action rifle. And the suspect, as we now know, is 22-year-old Tyler James Robinson, who surrendered after being identified in released images. So he faces, multiple charges, including, listen to this, aggravated murder, discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and a violent offense in the presence of a child. And prosecutors are pursuing the death penalty. So, what do we know about his motive so far? So, Robinson allegedly had growing political disagreements with Kirk, especially over issues like transgender rights and what he perceived as hatred in Kirk's rhetoric. And some casings, found at the scene were engraved with messages referencing internet memes, anti-fascist sentiments, and mocking or confrontational phrases. His roommate, who is transgender and with whom he was romantically involved, has cooperated with investigators, and there is no evidence so far that the roommate had foreknowledge. So the questions that we have to keep in mind is that what does this say about political polarization today? And how do cracks in public discourse just escalate into violence? So let's just talk about it, man. This was a this was a really shocking development, a really wild episode that happened where you found this guy, Charlie Kirk, was speaking at a varsity campus, addressing a crowd of people, and he was answering a question regarding gun violence. And that is when he was sadly shot at and subsequently died when he was transported to hospital where he was pronounced dead later on. So yeah, man. What did you what did you think of this whole drama, bro?
yeah. Oh, I mean, it was shocking because I don't know. I just think it's because I wasn't that well versed on Charlie as a person and his political
Yeah, no
takes.
one knew him
He,
until he died, bro.
uh, yeah, I wouldn't say no one, but I think he was just way more popular in the US. But I think
Yeah.
I was familiar with his work just when like his videos would pop up on my feed sometimes and I'd watch, and it would
Mm.
usually have to do with the transgender topics, etc. And it was these videos would usually be him and his I think his organization is called Turning Points, but
Turning point,
where
yes.
yes, where he goes to university campuses and he debates students and all sorts of people, but it's basically like an open invitation type of thing, but he used to host them on college campuses, but anyone could come through and sort of debate him about certain things.
Mhm.
But my takeaway from it was it just shows us that we've become so politically adversarial. It's sad to see that people can't just disagree with you and just move on with their lives anymore. It seems like in the United States,
Mhm.
they're moving in a direction where political violence is not only slowly becoming the norm, but it's being cheered on. And it's like, when did we leave the reality where you can just fundamentally disagree with someone and just move on with your life? Why did it have
Mhm.
to come to a point where certain people feel like it's right, it's just to shoot someone in the neck because they said that they don't like abortion, or because they're living by their Christian fundamentalist views? It's like,
Bro.
and when this all happened, that's the first time that I actually did some deep diving on what has Charlie said, what did he stand for.
Mm.
There would even be a lot of different sort of clips of his where he says certain things, and people form their entire view of this guy based on certain clips that were often taken out of context. And it's like,
Yeah.
when I did the deep dive myself, I found myself disagreeing with a lot of what he said. I found myself agreeing
Mhm.
with some things that he said, but there wasn't a single part of me that was like, I wish this dude would get shot in the neck for what he just said. It's like,
Yeah, bro.
there wasn't a single part of me that felt that way. And it to me was quite jarring when it turned out that there were so many people who were happy that this dude got killed.
Yeah.
Because, and when you think about the optics of it, think about it, never mind the fact that we have this like detached style of consuming news on the internet. Think about this like in a real way. This guy got shot in front of his family, in front of kids.
Bro.
Like, this dude got shot in the neck, and apparently, like, it was an extremely violent video that I didn't even bother watching. But it's like, this is an event that traumatized people, dog. Like, it's like, this isn't. And
Yeah.
there was even there's this liberal commentator type guy who went there, and I think he was the guy that Charlie was talking to just before he got shot. Like, Charlie was shot in front of that guy. So there's an entire interview on Channel 5 News. It's run by this American YouTuber, but it's a brilliant piece of journalism where the guy is being interviewed, the witness. He's being interviewed about
Mm.
how he felt in the moment, how he came there because he fundamentally disagrees with this Charlie guy. But when he witnessed Charlie getting shot, like, because I think Charlie got shot as he was answering one of his questions,
Yeah.
and yeah, and this guy isn't he's the polar opposite to Charlie, like, politically. But even he had the
Mm.
empathy to be like, this isn't what I want. We don't want to live in a world where political violence is the norm, where it's like we get to kill people because they believe differently than we do. It's like, and ironically enough, the guy that was open to conversation is the guy that got killed. You know, it's
Bro.
symbolic in and of itself, without trying to messianize this guy or whatever. It's like, but the point is, whatever you felt like about his beliefs, he was actively having conversations with people. It's like, and a lot of
Yeah.
some of the clips that go around where he's saying things that seem really reprehensible, but then when you watch them in full context, you're like, okay, this is what this guy meant. I may not agree with it.
Yeah.
I may see some facts in what he's saying, but the full context gives him so much more humanity than what's circulating on Twitter or whatever about.
Yeah.
And people are using those clips to sort of be like, see, he had it coming, like, he
Yeah.
deserved it.
To
And it's like,
demonize them.
and I think people
Mm.
need to understand that regardless of what your political leanings are, taking people's statements out of context is literal propaganda. That's the literal definition of propaganda. And people don't realize that because we always perceive propaganda as like this thing that only fascists do, or that these totalitarian governments do. When it's like, no, we as consumers of the internet, we also have the power to
We do
propagandize
it on a
people's.
fucking daily.
We do it on a daily basis. If I say
Bro.
something, if I spend 30 minutes talking about something and you take 1 minute out of context of what I said, you could form the craziest narrative around me, whether you agree with me or not.
Exactly.
So it's just unfortunate, man. But I think people should really go and watch that interview. I can't remember the liberal's name, but
Yeah.
he was literally the guy there on ground zero when it happened, and he was actually trying to have a conversation with a guy that he disagreed with fundamentally, which is what we should be doing, not wishing death upon people. It's wild out here, man. It's really, really crazy.
It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. I didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was, bro.
Mm.
Prior to this, I don't want to lie. How I even came across it, dude. I'm on Instagram, right? And I'm looking at people's stories. So I see this one guy's story. Okay, R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. See the
Mm.
graphic. Okay, 1993, 2025. And then I go to the next part of the story. Hey, this may contain sensitive, what you call this? Uh, yeah, this might contain sensitive material.
Mm.
So if you want to watch it, like here's the options. So I'm like, what the hell could this be? Yeah, when I look at this thing, bro, the dude is being asked a question on gun
Mm.
violence, and I'm not sure what he says when he answers, but he's asking a question like, I think, does gang violence, like, are you counting gang violence or whatnot?
Mm.
Right after that, boom, dog, he gets
Yeah.
clipped like in the neck. Like I saw it graphically, and it is so graphic and it's so violent, bro. It's something I wish I didn't see. Right? It's something I wish I
Because you're
didn't
not
see.
supposed to.
Yeah, bro. So he drops. There's a lot of panic. People are screaming. People will get dispersed, and yeah, he gets carried out. And that's when yeah, dived into, okay, what the hell was this about? Who was this guy? And who was this guy? Why was he killed? And it speaks to everything you said, right? Like, fundamentally, bro, he was martyred. Like, he's now a martyr for free speech, right? He's now
Mm.
a martyr for free speech. And when I did my research on him and yeah, just seeing what he's about and what he stood for, yeah, I necessarily like didn't agree with most of his views. Majority of his views I disagreed with, but in terms of what you call this, his moral stance on certain things, yes, some things I did agree with, but what I found interesting is the fact that as much as he had these controversial, provocative political views, right? And he stood on them, he was also willing to give an ear, right?
Mm.
And hear the other perspective, people who vehemently disagreed with him. He was willing to sit down, talk, have a conversation, and he was willing to be proven wrong, you know?
Mm.
He was willing to be proven wrong and he was open to that dialogue. So which is what I believe why he had gained such a following,
Mm.
because of his style of debate and the fact that he was so open to talking to basically anyone,
Mm.
who was open to challenging his views. So the fact that he just got killed so brazenly in broad daylight the way he did is really wild, and it also speaks to the times that we live in. Like
Mm.
everything is documented and recorded in real time, and it just speaks to the violent nature of the times we're living in, and just
Mm.
this phenomenon of outrage culture that people really can't stand having their opinion challenged or
Mm.
having someone else differ, yeah, have a different opinion to what they believe in, and the fact that one person believes in something that may offend you or trigger you, yeah, the fact that a person believes what they believe now puts you in danger of being killed because
Mm.
of your fundamental right to express your opinions, right, and what
Mm.
you stand for. Now you stand to be killed as a result of that. And
Oh.
it's just sad because the guy who even killed him, bro, is a guy who recently got into politics, right? And when I say
Mm.
recently, it had only been like a few years. And
Yeah.
this kid, he's essentially a kid, felt the need that this guy is spewing so much hate and causing so much divide in society that I must take it upon myself to eliminate him. So it's really sad when you look at it that way because this is someone who is essentially our age, right? In our age
Mm,
bracket, who was killed by a younger person. And it also speaks to like this generational divide, not a big generational divide, but there is a clear difference between millennials and Gen Zs. And I'm not trying to pick us,
mm,
like pit us together, but it speaks to the generational differences, the differences in viewpoints, but also how this outrage culture has enabled, for lack of a better word, trolls and people who don't agree with what you say to take action
mm,
anonymously or take action brazenly against people in terms of harassing and intimidating them and ultimately killing them, you know?
yeah.
So it just speaks to that because it also speaks to the state of the times in terms of political violence in the world. Because, I mean, not so long ago, Trump almost got killed,
Mm,
because he was campaigning for his presidency. And he he's a person who is not loved by everyone. He also says some really wild things and things that are out of pocket that gets
mm,
people riled up. But the fact that, okay, if Trump could get hit, and we're seeing now Charlie Kirk, who just got murdered,
mm,
it threatens, like you said, like it threatens people's fundamental right to freedom of speech and just speaking your mind, within reason, right? Speaking your mind within
mm,
reason and getting your point across without fear of being threatened and intimidated. But personally, with all that being said, right, we see that he's now being charged with the death penalty, and also the fact that he killed him in the manner he did, like it was so professionally done. I don't think this kid was alone in doing this thing, bro. I don't believe it for a
yeah.
second that he was alone in organizing such a high profile hit and for it to be so well executed. Like, because he even he even alludes to it in some of the text messages between him and his lover, that this is something he had kept as a secret till old age. But also he says something along the lines of, I had the opportunity, like, listen to this, I had the opportunity to kill Charlie Kirk and I couldn't say no to it. Who are you
That's
saying no to?
insane.
You know?
That is insane. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
man.
don't
It's
think for a second he was alone in this, bro. Like,
mm,
there are some powers in the shadows, bro, who orchestrated this whole thing, and he's taken the fall.
yeah. It's insane. Eh, regardless, not even regardless, but in spite of what you said about how chances of him working alone are like, it doesn't seem likely, but I think it also just speaks to how social media has just desensitized people. This whole
Exactly.
outrage culture, it's sort of detached people from reality in many ways. It's like,
Hmm.
I mean, of course, you'd have to be detached from reality in order to listen to someone you disagree with for long enough that you decide that this person deserves to die. You would have to be in some regard detached from reality, and especially if when you also take into also consideration how a lot of people have reacted to this killing. It's like,
Hmm.
it's almost like people are so far removed from reality that it's like we kind of we revel and we're excited in someone's assassination. It's like,
Bro.
what if tomorrow it's a progressive that you admire, that someone on the other
Yeah.
side fundamentally disagreed with, and they shot them in the neck? Are we now supposed to suspend and be like, oh no, we thoughts and prayers, and like, And if the other side
Yeah,
does the
bro.
same thing of like celebrating this person's death, then it's gonna be like a back and forth of hypocrisy where it's like yesterday it was
Dog.
your team's guy, today it's gonna be your team's guy. So are you gonna keep the same energy, or are you now gonna expect us to feel bad because we've lost an icon, etc., etc.? And it's like we should just be against political violence, period, regardless of
Mm,
which
bro.
side it's coming from. We shouldn't have this preferential perspective of like, oh, Charlie, and there's my perception of him, therefore he deserved to die. If
Mm,
that's cool for you, then it should be cool for any other person who gets killed for saying things that other people fundamentally disagree with. I genuinely, in part, blame how social media has desensitized us to the fact that these are people, man. Like Gabandu Aba at the end
definitely,
of the
bro.
day, whether you disagree with them or not.
It's so sad, bro. Like, essentially, at the end of the day, this is a human life that was killed in such a grotesque and cruel manner that
Mm,
for you to even celebrate his death, bro, is it's just so insensitive, bro.
pretty
Because
wild, bro.
regardless of your political views and how you felt about them, like this man was killed in front of his wife and his kids, bro. Like imagine the
Crazy.
like leave like leave the shooting alone, but like can you just imagine the humiliation his
Mm,
wife and kids felt in that moment, you know?
yeah.
Because this
Apparently, it's
guy,
yeah.
listen to me, like this guy is he organized this meeting. He was going about his day. He put all these people in attendance, to see him, only for all these people to see him get killed. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy, bro. Yeah,
Uh,
but go
I'll
on.
do you one. I'll do you one even better because I think based on what I found out, his kids seem to be very, very young. But now imagine
Hmm.
in the next 10 plus years, because you know how everyone has access now, even kids.
Exactly.
Imagine down the line, this dude's kids are gonna stumble upon this clip of their dad getting shot in the neck, like live in front of a bunch of
Of
people,
course they're going to.
and then you're gonna see the records of people celebrating him. It's like,
Oh
what do
my
you think
God,
that'll
bro.
do? What do you think that would do to anyone who grew up without their father, and then they find all that shit on the internet? It's like that's what it goes back to what I'm saying. It's like we've become a little bit too desensitized, man. It's like it's become a little bit too easy to celebrate when someone you don't like kicks the bucket or when they get taken out. It's like, can we chill? Like, can we touch grass? Like, you
Like,
know.
bro. Like, bruh. Like, this is someone's child at the end of the day, bro. And a guy who was not too old, like around our age bracket, bro. Like, I
Mm,
felt for him, bro, when that shit happened, dude. Like, I just felt so sad for him and his family. And also, like, he has just so much more to give and so much more to do for him
mm.
to be taken out like that, bro, regardless of his political views and what you may think about him, bro.
Mm.
Like, at the end of the
I
day,
can
this is
dislike your takes without wanting you killed, man. Like, you know.
bro, like, there's a lot of racist, like, jerks and a-holes out here that I don't like, but you won't find me like wishing that they die, even if I low key would hope they die. But I'm not gonna be out just say, "Hey, dude, I wish you die." I may not like
Yeah,
you, but that's crazy, bro.
we need to
It's
chill, man.
crazy.
We need to
Like,
touch grass.
hey, bruh. Like, there's so much more to life, bro, than wishing. Like, there's so much more to life, bro, than wishing for someone you don't even know, you've never met, who's not gonna do anything for you, like who has like someone you're watching from a screen who does not
Mm,
give a damn about who you are and like
mm.
what you may think about him, and you celebrating this guy's death just because you don't agree to what you say. Like, bro, it just sounds wild to me.
You know what the beauty is of freedom of speech is that if someone's saying something you don't like, you have the privilege of walking away, or you have the
Definitely.
privilege of turning the clip off. If you're watching a YouTube video of someone saying something you don't like, it's extremely easy to turn off the video, and keep it pushing. Watch something you like. Watch something. If you want to be in an echo chamber, then go and listen to what you like to hear. But you have the
Yeah.
option of switching this off. Oh, he said what? Okay, cool. This is not my lane. It's as easy as that,
Yeah.
you know.
Like if you're not mature enough for that, then go watch Coco Melon, bro. Like damn.
Yo, yo, this nigga
like for like for
Coco
real.
Melon. But yeah,
But
it's
moving along.
wow.
Moving along, bro. Like, speaking of like social unrest and just political upheaval, what's happening in Nepal, bro? Social media ban that triggered a
Mm,
lot of protests, which started when the Nepali government banned several major social media platforms that had not registered or appointed liaison officers in Nepal, right? And
mm,
many saw this not just as a technical or regulatory move, but as an attack on freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And these are youth-led protests, right? Mainly Gen Zs,
mm,
which has sparked mass protests, which also, yeah, mass protests amongst the younger people who are also frustrated with corruption, nepotism, lack of economic opportunities, and feeling sidelines in politics. These clashes have been violent, right, between the protesters and security forces, and we've seen many deaths and injuries being reported, and government buildings set alight. So, yeah, this is what's been going on in Nepal, bro. It's pretty wild that people are having not political, sorry, like massive protests over social media bans. Like, if you thought we had problems in South Africa, bro, like, yeah, this is wild. But yeah, you want to talk about this, bro, so I'll just give it to you.
Yeah, we'll just touch on it briefly, but the reason why this is so important is because it shows what focused revolution looks like. You know, when the people have just had enough, when they're like, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
this right here was the last of the last straw. You know,
Yeah.
and and just to give people some background, the entire Gen Z unrest riots started because of the fact that Nepal had endured multiple corrupt government regimes and got to a point where there was some kind of trend on Nepalese social media where various politicians' children were showcasing their like luxury goods. They're showing their Gucci bags and stuff like that online,
Mm,
while the Nepalese people are essentially like suffering and like going through so much unemployment and there's corruption and crime. And so essentially the youth of Nepal they were like, well, fuck this then. Like, huh? Like how are we starving out here and being subjected to watching politicians enrich themselves and their families? We've had enough. And they literally took to the streets and decided to burn down parliament. And what I liked about it was that it seemed like what I call like focused sort of uprising where they didn't do
mm,
like what we did during COVID or just after COVID, where we went around rioting and looting and burning down everything, even services that we need. It seems like the
yeah.
Nepalese, for the most part, they strategically attacked government buildings. They burned down parliament. They went after the houses of politicians who are implicated in stuff like this.
Mm,
They for the most part left their services that they rely on alone. They mostly left businesses alone. They left hospitals alone. Of course there will be some, but it seems like for the most part the Nepalese people, they knew exactly where their beef was. They took
yeah,
their
it's
outrage.
targeted.
Exactly, it was targeted. They took their beef to
Mm,
where it needed to be addressed. They didn't burn
mm,
because you can tell that this whole riot came from a love of country. It's not just this
mm,
chaotic like anger. We're just gonna burn everything down. It's we have a beef with the government, and that's where we're gonna take it. And that's something that I
mm,
wish that the people of South Africa would emulate because we're in a similar boat. Even though you could make the case
mm-hmm.
that it's not as bad per se, But we're in a similar boat where it's like we're held under the thumb of a corrupt government that insults us every single year, using our taxpayer money to enrich
Mm,
themselves while the state falls apart. People don't get basic services. There's even deep corruption in the Department of Health, where we need a functional healthcare system, but a lot of that money doesn't get to the departments that it needs to because there's fat cats, that we elected who are, living lavish and, living their wildest dreams and, affording that lifestyle for their children while other people's children essentially, you know, lose their futures. So it's just a very telling state of affairs that I think we could learn from in many ways.
talk about it, bro. Like, that was going to be my next question. Like, what do you think we as South Africans can learn from this? And how can we, especially the youth, the people who are essentially going to take over the reins of this country someday, how could we mobilize and impact, make real impact for change, like we saw when we all banded together for Fees Must Fall?
Mm. I think we need leadership, but we also need to act from a love of country, man. Like we
Mm,
can't let it get out of control. Because in a situation like ours, we can't vote our way out of situations like this. The structures work for the powers that be. They don't work for the average person. They're not supposed to because
mm,
they've been engineered to be corrupt to enrich, those at the top. So I just
mm,
wish we could look at examples like, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi and and create a blueprint as to what kind of leaders we need in this country. And then I think we also just need to remind ourselves that as the youth, we need to act. It's it
mm-hmm,
we, this is we're inheriting the world in the next few years. If we can't
mm-hmm,
act in whatever capacity that actually brings change, but if we can't act in a way that helps, that works for us and for the future, for the long run, then what good are we? It's like we're just sitting here letting history be written for us instead of actually,
yeah,
putting the foot forward
defining
and
it for
doing
ourselves.
defining it for ourselves. So I
Mm-hmm,
think we can genuinely learn from Nepal. The youth of Nepal decided, they didn't just talk about it. They were like, we're sick of this. We're genuinely sick of this, and we're going to take our grievances and our anger and our issues to where it needs to be taken to. We're not going to destroy our world to make a statement, but we're going to burn the
mm.
structures of the people who are essentially oppressing us when they've been charged to serve us. So it's just a very, very interesting state of affairs that I think we can learn a lot from.
Ooh, I got a ball, bro.
Mm.
Like with
Talk
what you
about it.
said, like, like we're not trying to make a statement, right? But we're sending a message. We are
Mm.
sending a motherfucking message,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. We can't keep living like
So,
this, man. Can't.
yeah, can't keep living like this, and we are willing to stand up and make
Mm.
a change and own that change, even if it means
Mm.
we have to be violent and lose a few lives along the way. But the cause, we're for it and we want to bring it forward because we're tired of living like this and being under the rule of people who don't really care, who don't care at all about
Mm.
us, and who are only interested in in themselves and
Mm.
filling their own pockets with our money essentially. So
Mm.
they're definitely sending a
Crimes
message in that sense.
against humanity. I've said this before, bro.
Bro.
Like, said this
Yeah.
before. We're too chilled about a lot of the shit that's going on in this country. I'm not inciting violence. I'm not saying people should go out and burn. Like, I
Yeah.
just mean we need to act. We can't just keep talking about this as young people. What are we gonna do about it?
It just reminded me with what we talked about earlier with General Mkhwanazi, ne? And what
Mm,
he's revealed. Like we had been so apathetic and
mm,
we've been so apathetic, but also so used to the status quo that no one really cared about the country's corruption anymore.
Mm,
It wasn't really a thing, right? Up until the explosion, the explosive press conference that General Mkhwanazi hosted, which turned
mm,
everything upside down. And now people are starting to wake up and care about our country again and the
mm,
political mechanics of this nation. And yeah, it's really events like this that really define a nation and define a time in history as to as to what happened, and most importantly, on which side of history will you be on when all is said and done? Like,
mm,
what are your kids going to say and ask you
mm.
when all is said and done about this? Like, what were you
What did you
doing?
do? Mm,
What did you do? What were you doing? And
mm,
how did you help out? Or how did you help out? Or why didn't you help out?
mm. Because they're
So
gonna
it's
look
one of
back,
mhm.
they're gonna look back and be like, wherever we end up as a country in, let's say, the next 10 plus years, the children of that era are gonna look at us and be like, so njengoba yonke le nto ibisenzeka, what did y'all do? Like, were you guys just sitting
Ubuphi wena?
around? When were you guys just
Yebo.
sitting around talking about it, complaining while other countries were actually acting and saying enough is enough? Where were you guys as the
But can I
adults
tell
or
you
as the
what,
young
bro?
people of that era?
But can I tell you what, bro?
Mm,
Can I tell you what? We're gonna upload this episode, right? And we've brought up what we've brought up, right? And it's on
mm,
record. It's gonna be on record forever. So we're doing our part. Like, we're bringing this conversation forward. We're letting people know this is what the fuck's going on in our country. So
mm.
we're
We're,
doing our
we're
bit, bro.
we're at least talking about this because it seems like it doesn't feel like we as young people are, it doesn't feel like we care. It feels like we've
It
given up. And
doesn't,
I,
bro.
I
But
don't want that to be our reality at all.
exactly, but there's also the fact that there's not too many of us as millennials and Gen Zs talking about this, you know?
Mm,
And the millennials talking about this are some of are like guys who are on the older spectrum, the
mm,
like the older spectrum of our generation, you know? And it's
mm,
up to us, the guys like in the mid 90s, late 90s, to really drive this forward, you know? So
mm.
yeah, this is what we're essentially hoping to achieve with this, man.
Yeah.
So
More of
yeah, it's
the
been a mhm.
Yeah, I was just gonna say more of what Mkhwanazi is doing. We need more of that on every front, everywhere, because there's so much rot in this country that needs to be unearthed. We need so much more of this.
Yeah. So let's just wrap it up and leave it there. It's been another amazing episode of Not Another Podcast with myself and Ndima. And
Hmm.
yeah, we're going to keep talking about the latest developments of General Mkhwanazi and the Madlanga Commission and everything else. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. And if Ndima doesn't have anything else to say, yeah, go to gym, drink water, do your best to
Hmm.
mind your business, get off the
Hmm.
phone, read a book, and
Touch
yeah,
grass.
touch grass, tell your mom, tell your dad you love them, go get a
Drink
girlfriend,
water.
have a drink.
Hmm.
You
Eat
know,
less
if
KFC.
you eat less KFC, don't
A
listen
salad.
to don't listen to the dumb shit on social media. Stay off TikTok for a bit, and yeah, that's me.
Simple as that. Yeah. Code to live by, even though it's a bit long.
Yeah, man. Even if it's a bit long, man, and yeah, man, don't trust D hoes.
Yeah, wait. Yee.
Nah, I'm kidding, man. We love
Yeah.
the ladies here. But
Yeah,
yeah.
wait.
Yeah, man. Good night, everyone, and have a great evening.
Till the next one.
Cheers.